our unity, the unity of black people, and something that happens once we unify. I really want you to understand something. After over 400 years of slavery in America, after we was free and a lot of black people starved to death, we went through a rough time after slavery for a little while. Guess what? Black people flourish because we are built like that. When we come together, these free slaves, they united under a common goal to survive, to be successful, to be something, and they did well. We had labor skills, so we were able to do great things. So don't let them tell you that we was poor after slavery, that we needed the white man's help, we needed their welfare. Don't let them tell you that, because we know for a fact Black Wall Street was the absolute apex of success for the black person after slavery. Now, if you don't know about Black Wall Street, take a look at this and see what I'm talking about.
The date was June 1st, 1921, when Black Wall Street, the name fittingly given to one of the most affluent all-black communities in America, was bombed from the air and burned to the ground by mobs of envious whites. In a period spanning fewer than 12 hours, a once thriving 36-block black business district in northern Tulsa lay smoldering, a model community destroyed, and a major African-American economic movement resoundingly diffused. The night's carnage left some 3,000 African-Americans dead and over 600 successful businesses lost. Amongst these were 21 churches, 21 restaurants, 30 grocery stores, and 2 movie theaters, plus a hospital, a bank, a post office, libraries, schools, law offices, and a half dozen private airplanes, and even a bus system. As could be expected, the impetus behind it all was the infamous Ku Klux Klan working in consort with ranking city officials and many other sympathizers. The description of Black Wall Street, or Little Africa as it was also known, would be to liken it to a mini Beverly Hills. It was the golden door of the black community during the early 1900s, and it proved that African Americans had successful business infrastructure. That's what Black Wall Street was all about. The dollar circulated 36 to 1,000 times, sometimes taking an entire year for the currency to leave the community. Now, in 2009, a dollar left the black community in less than 6 hours. As far as resources, there were PhDs residing in Little Africa, black attorneys and doctors. One doctor was Dr. Berry, who also owned the bus system. His average income was $500 a day, a hefty pocket of change in 1910. During that era, physician-owned medical schools. There were also pawn shops everywhere, jewelry stores, churches, restaurants, and movie theaters. It was a time when the entire state of Oklahoma had only 2 airports, yet 6 blacks owned their own airplanes. It was a very fascinating community. The area encompassed over 600 businesses in a 36 square block area with a population of 15,000 African Americans. And when the lower economic Europeans looked over and saw what the black community created, many of them were jealous. When the average student went to school on Black Wall Street, he wore a suit and tie because of the morals and respect that they were taught at a young age. The mainstay of the community was to educate every child. Nepotism was a word they passionately believed in. The main thoroughfare was Greenwood Avenue, and it was intersected by Archer and Pine Streets. From the first letters of each of these names, you get GAP, and that's where the renowned R&B music group The Gap Band got its name. They were from Tulsa. Black Wall Street was a prime example of the typical black community in America that did business. But it was in an unusual location. You see, at that time, Oklahoma was set aside to be a black and Indian state. There were over 28 black townships there. 1/3 of the people who traveled in the terrifying Trail of Tears alongside the Indians between 1830 to 1842 were black people. The citizens of this proposed Indian and black state chose a black governor, a treasurer from Kansas named McDade. But the Ku Klux Klan said that if he assumed office, that they would kill him in less than 48 hours. A lot of blacks owned farmland, and many of them had gone into the oil business. The community was so tight and wealthy because they traded dollars hand to hand, and because they were dependent upon one another as a result of the Jim Crow laws. It was not unusual that if a resident's home accidentally burned down, it could be rebuilt within a few weeks by neighbors. This was the type of scenario that was going on day to day on Black Wall Street. When blacks intermarried into the Indian culture, some of them did receive their promised 40 acres and a mule, and with that came whatever oil was later found on the properties. On Black Wall Street, a lot of global business was conducted. The community flourished from the early 1900s until June 1st, 1921. That's when the largest massacre of non-military Americans in the history of this country took place, and it was led by the Ku Klux Klan. Imagine walking out of your front door and seeing 1,500 homes being burned. It must have been horrifying. Interviewed survivors believe that the whole thing was planned due to the fact that white families with their children stood around on the borders of the community and watched the massacre, the looting, everything, much in the same way they would watch a lynching. The spectator activity is where the word picnic is derived from. You see, it was typical to have community gatherings on Friday evenings in Oklahoma. The word was short for pick a nigger, to lynch that is. They would lynch a black male and cut off body parts as souvenirs. This went on every weekend in this country. That's where the term really came from. The cause of the massacre was simply racial economic jealousy. A lot of white folks had come back from World War I, and they were poor. When they looked over into the black communities and realized that black men who fought in the war had come home as heroes, and that helped trigger the destruction. It cost the black community everything, and not a single dime of restitution, no insurance claims, has ever been awarded to the victims to this day.
So you can see that, as I was talking about earlier, once black people unify, once we come together and we do something great, because you know what? Modern day, you hear it all the time. White people say, oh, black people are just lazy. Oh, they don't want to do nothing. You will see throughout this video, and you will see in history, every instance, every time that black people has unified and come together in success, we were taken down by white people. We were taken down by jealous people. Our whole situation was destroyed every time we came together and united and had success. I was showing you before about the Songhai people. They came together, they was united. It doesn't matter what religion we are under. When we come together, we flourish. The Songhai people was doing well, they were taken down. You see Black Wall Street taken down. Whenever we come together, and I'm gonna show you a couple more instances in this video that happened, we are taken down. So we see Black Wall Street was great. We were doing great things. And that's in the 20s. That was in the 1920s.